The world is brought to the brink of madness when Jedah Doma crosses into Earth to stop Shadow Soul, but the journey unleashes something much worse. We're going to talk about it in our review of Darkstalkers Jedah #1 from Udon Entertainment. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Darkstalkers Jedah #1 from Udon Entertainment. Before we dig in, let's talk about the credits. This issue is written by Tim Seeley with art by Alberto Albuquerque, colors by Espen Gunjorn, letters by Marshall Dillon, and cover art by Panzer for cover A. All right, let's jump right in. The issue begins with a prologue where Jedah Doma is narrating where he is, what he's doing, and where he lives within the realm known as the Makai. He explains that it's a realm of shadow and red skies, and that he has been doing his best to try and gain power, gain strength, with the eventual goal of taking over the Earth, which is separate from the Makai by a dimensional membrane or a film, if you want to call it that. Once he explains what he's trying to do and how he's trying to get there and the nature of his enemies and his allies, he also explains that there is a second individual, or second entity I should say, who's also interested in taking over the Earth, that is acting as a competitor or a somebody who is also trying to take over the Earth but at odds with what Jedah is trying to do, and that entity is known as the Shadow Soul. Then we cut to a scene with a space station orbiting Earth where two astronauts are they're doing some repairs on the outside because they believe some kind of meteor or space debris has hit the station. When they move to investigate, they find that it's a large block of ice, but it's not just a regular block of ice. Inside the block is a character that we'd known previously as Dmitry Maximov, and it looks like he's trying to make his way back to Earth, even though he's not particularly mobile. Then after a brief montage, we see Jedah Doma trying to break through a portal that separates the Makai and the Earth because he senses that the Shadow Soul is trying to do something, that he's exerting influence over the creatures that are resident on Earth. When he breaks through the portal, but his body hasn't quite formed fully yet, he's attacked by a Catwoman. But it's not just any Catwoman, it's a Catwoman who's been possessed by the Shadow Soul. And the two break out into a horrendous fight. The Shadow Soul tries to take Jedah's soul, and what winds up happening is he winds up getting absorbed into Jedah's body, and now Jedah sort of transforms into this hybrid amalgamation of his own body and his own power with wings and everything else, and also the Shadow Soul's power. So it's a mix and match, kind of an amalgam or a hybrid, if you will. But it doesn't stay that way for long because the Shadow Soul tries to bust out, and it winds up spewing guts everywhere as the two start battling for control of the one physical body. Then we cut to a scene from the Joint Terrorism Task Force in the Chicago area, and Cammy White is escorting Gil, who is the former leader of the Secret Society, to interrogation prison, some place where he's going to be held for his past crimes. But while that escort is happening, they notice a huge rumbling kind of disruption or chaos happening in the streets below, and what they see is this big spiraling, tumbling ball of goo and energy that is the mix of Jedah and the Shadow Soul fighting each other and turning into this sort of avalanching huge ball that's just rumbling down the city streets and knocking down everything in its path. When Cammy White and the rest of her team move to investigate, chaos breaks out because not only are the Shadow Soul and Jedah fighting for control of their respective bodies, but Jedah was attacked before he could close the portal that separated the Earth and the Makai. And so all the demons in the Makai are starting to spew out of the portal, basically creating an ad hoc invasion for the city streets. Cammy White and her team leap to the rescue and start fighting all the demons and the monsters that are just spewing out of the portal and trying to keep everybody in check and trying to save as many civilians as possible. But it's starting to look pretty impossible. Cammy White and her crew decide to get in on the action by trying to destroy the demons, save civilians, do everything they can to keep everything in check. But they're starting to succeed. But we see elsewhere is that one, Gil breaks his bonds and decides to get in on the fight because he knows that even though he may not be a good guy anymore, he's still trying to protect the Earth and protect people from whatever dark magic has come through the portal from the Makai. And then second, we see that Shadow Soul begins to win the fight against Jedah by unleashing a move called the Midnight Bliss that he stole, or I should say borrowed, from Dmitry Maximov. And after he uses the move, the Midnight Bliss, he winds up taking control of Jedah's body, and the two merge, but they merge with Shadow Soul in control, and they merge to form a new character by the name of Shadow Jedah. Now, with a new threat firmly established and the Shadow Jedah possessing all the supernatural creatures around her to form a new army to start attacking the Earth, Cammy White and her crew decide to join forces with their regular enemies to form a new assembled team that's going to do battle with whatever darkness the Shadow Jedah has lined up for them. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fence in Makai, we see that Lilith has been made aware of the situation, and now she begins to marshal her forces. So we end there on the cliffhanger that the entire story is a setup for a new series that's coming in October called Team Darkstalkers #1. What do we like about this issue? If you're a Street Fighter fan and you're in particular Darkstalkers fan, there's a lot to like here. There are cameos galore. There are characters all over the place. It's fast-paced. Plenty of action. The stakes are certainly very high by the time you get to the end of the issue, and it builds a lot of teasing and anticipation for the new series that's coming in October. So if you're firmly already invested in this world and you want more of it, this is a great jumping on point to kind of get you ready for the new series. And if that's your thing, then you're in great shape. What didn't we like about this issue? If you are not a Street Fighter fan and you are not a Darkstalkers fan, you will get lost very quickly. I'm just being honest. There is so many names and references and pieces of information that get thrown at you all at once that you have to keep track of and understand what's the significance, who's that person and who's this person and who's that person and who's this person. You'd have to go through some wikis to figure out everything that's going on and who's who and what's what and why things are happening. That's not to say that that Tim Seeley did a bad job by rushing through necessarily, but it definitely feels like you're picking up after a bunch of stories that have already happened. So in terms of new readers thinking this might be a good jumping on point, it's not. There's a lot of background and research you have to go through to figure out what's going on. This issue really works best for people who are already established fans of Street Fighter and Darkstalkers and all the characters that are involved. That's not to say a new reader can't get into it. I'm not saying, you do what you want. It's your money. But if you go into this cold, it'll be tough getting into the world because there is so much happening and so much of the world that is not built by Tim Seeley, that he's relying on you understanding the world already, that you're going to feel a bit lost. And that can be a problem for bringing new readers on. Let's switch gears and talk about the art from Alberto Albuquerque. Looks good to great. The character designs look exactly as they're supposed to look. The action is, because this is the supernatural corner of this universe, it's violent and bloody in a gruesome, monsterific kind of way, which is what it's supposed to. It doesn't get overly gory. You're not seeing intestines flying around and people's heads getting chopped off, but it's just violent enough to make sense for the world that you're inhabiting here. The character designs look authentic for how they should look. The action is very energetic and very powerful, and overall, it is a visually enjoyable comic. Final thoughts. What do we think about Darkstalkers Jedah #1 from Udon Entertainment? Lots of great action, an interesting premise, high stakes, lots of character cameos from all across the universe, and a solid tease and I would say a prelude and setup for a new series coming in October. That said, on the downside, if you're a new reader, this is a terrible jumping on point because there are so many names and characters and references and places and things that are happening where if you are coming into this cold, you'll have no idea who's who and what's going on. So it's not necessarily the writer's fault, but they're just writing. Tim Seeley is just writing from a place of assumption that you already know this universe. So if you're a new reader and you like this universe, you're in great shape. If you're a new reader but you don't know this universe and you're not familiar with the characters, you're going to have a tough time getting into it and you're going to feel a little confused and lost. Just want to let you know that in advance. Therefore, we're going to give Darkstalkers, Jedah number 1 from Udon Entertainment. I think a respectable 7.8 out of 10. And the only reason the score is as low as it is because just the lack of the world building and the lack of on-ramping to allow new readers to get into this and figure out what's going on. It feels like a transition issue, also a prelude issue, so it doesn't really stand on its own, either from the background or for where it's going next. Other than that, the art is great and the general execution of the story is pretty darn good. So, what do you think about Darkstalkers? Are you a fan? Are you a fan of these characters? Do you like the way they're being presented in the comics, or do you prefer something a little bit different? Let us know in the comments section. Otherwise, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Let us know how we're doing and how we can do better for you. And if you like more reviews just like this one, please stay tuned through the outro.